I'm Jamie O'Kane, CPA, Small Business Advanced Tax Planning and Compliance Extraordinaire, and this is the Abundant Beans Podcast, the podcast that takes my love for learning what makes people tick while digging into the good, bad, and ugly of small business ownership. We strive to give you the insight that only those in the trenches of being and working with entrepreneurs can provide. Today, I would like to welcome to the podcast Laura Fox. Laura is the owner and head creative at Rather Poetic, which provides strategic photography and design to small businesses. Her favorite thing is to create beautiful things to further a brand's story and visibility.
See, so much better than the one I wrote. So much better.
So we were just laughing because I went ahead and wrote Laura's bio for her. Because I think she sent it to my VA and I didn't get it. So I just wrote it for her, but I know her well enough that I was like, I can just do it. No worries. And you can have that if you want it.
Yeah, I definitely want that. Yeah, for sure.
Content, not my strong suit, but apparently that was good. So first question's always the same. What was your first job?
My first job where I filled out paperwork for the IRS.
Yeah, or just first job.
I got paid. I was an attendant at a mini putt golf course in the mountains
awesome.
Over the summer. So yeah,
in the mountains. Where in the mountains?
In Grand Lake.
Oh, that's fun. I love Grand Lake. So how did you get started in website and brand design?
So I taught myself to build websites when I was a teenager in the dark ages of the internet, when we were still using dial-up internet.
And when it was all AOL.
Yeah. And then my mom would yell at me get off the thing, I need to use the phone. Right. So I taught myself to design websites and got started there. And then I went to college and was like, I'm going to do something, professional. And then ended up changing my major to graphic design. And yeah, it's just... that's how we got started.
Graphic design's pretty professional now.
I mean, it is now, yeah. At the time, my parents were like,
"What are you
I'm sorry,
doing?
what? Is this an art degree?" Yes, it is. Sorry.
That's awesome. So what are the key elements of an effective logo or brand design?
All right, coming out the gate with big ones.
Yes. Give us all the good stuff.
I think it depends on a little bit on your market and what you're trying to do, but mostly what you're looking for is connection and something that stands out against competitors and then melts well with whoever are your business allies.
I love that. So what is your process for helping your clients find their voice through their branding?
We do a lot of talking and a lot of looking at visuals to see what really resonates. I also like to do research on their client market and then also, again, who else is in their space, competitors and allies, and see kind of what is already happening there and what's not happening there. Because if there's a color palette that's not being used or if there's imagery that's being overused, you can use that to determine a direction that you'll go.
I know. So Laura has done the branding for all of my businesses. How many do I have?
So. I think so.
For my doula website, for the CPA business, she did the podcast branding for this podcast. She's created the branding for the next podcast to be coming up sometime soon. I'm not sure when. And what we do find is a lot of the time we talk about what the color stories are in the industry.
Yes.
So when we put, there's to use the accounting firm because all the accounting firms have green. In their and their branding, right? And, so we were just no.
Yep.
But we went with teal and gray, which was super popular at the time.
Yes.
But I think I still don't see a whole lot of accounting firms with teal and gray.
Definitely not. Especially because you would standard advice for colors. If you're in a more professional field, you go with gray or blue or green, but not a tealy poppy green. You have to go with a muted green.
Yeah,
and we were
it's really
nope.
funny because there's a lot of companies that make folders for tax professionals.
Yes,
and it's always those colors.
Yes,
it's burgundy.
Oh yeah, burgundy.
Burgundy, blue, a navy blue, and forest green. Those are your options. And I was
that's all you get.
Can I have a gray one? How about gray?
Gray one would be perfect
because none of those are my brand colors.
Yes.
So I do see now even in the last 5 years or so, they've added grays, thankfully. Because then it's okay, we can do something gray. But they don't have teal. They don't have,
nope.
Not happening.
Nope. And that's the thing when you're looking at the market that way, it's really important to see where you can stand out because then when clients are researching a lot of people at one time, they go okay, who was the one with the logo that was blank or whatever? Yeah. And if you're different than everyone else, it sticks in their minds.
I like it. And then you and I love to use bright colors with our more muted colors. Like that's usually we're just like, where's the bright pop? Because if we don't do the bright pop, then it just looks like everything else. I love it. So what are some of your favorite industries to design for?
I like working with people who are getting started and who are still small, doing more personal brand photography. So I've worked with a lot of doulas. I've worked with a lot of other types of creatives, mediums, stuff like that. And it's just really fun. It sort of comes in waves. Like I'll have a client and then they'll say like, oh my gosh, go see my web person. Then I'll do a bunch of those and it gets really fun. But I've done your podcast and then a couple others and it's really fun. It's really enjoyable.
I think podcasts are fun because there's more elements too, right?
So because you get to do more things.
Yeah. So we get to design more items usually than you generally do for like a website or whatever. And
it's really fun too for podcast icons because you can bring in photography sometimes, which is really great for me because like most logos you're just doing like typography or like a little bit of illustration, but getting to bring in that photographic element's really fun for me as a photographer.
Podcasts are interesting. And then you and I we're always scrolling through going, what color are all the thumbnails now? Let's do the different one.
Let's make it different.
We want it to pop. And I do find a lot of them are really like black and white or like they're just very simple. And then we're just like, no.
And you got to like do the right balance because simple is really important because sometimes it's so small on your screen, so tiny on the screen. And then sometimes you're seeing it much bigger. And so you've got to find something that scales appropriately to all the uses.
What I love about what you do with that stuff though is like you'll show us something and it'll be like huge on your screen and then you'll like make it as tiny as possible because you're like you're actually going to look at it
you need to like this.
Because people don't a lot of the time I don't click over to what it's going to actually going to look like when somebody's scrolling on her phone or whatever.
Because when we're looking at it like on the screen ourselves, just as that's the only thing, it's very different. I did before I started doing videos for clients with their concepts, I did mock-ups for podcasts of like, here's a screenshot of iTunes and I make it real tiny and put it over, whatever the icon was in the screenshot so they could see what it would actually be like.
Yeah, I mean, another thing that's really important is when you're building a website, it has to look good in mobile. So you and I are doing some changes to the CPA website right now, and I sent you some stuff, and I was like, well, what about this and this? And you're like, that doesn't work for mobile. And so having that understanding how things are going to change.
And translate.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like most of my job is translating the ideas that we have or the concepts that we're working with into how is it actually going to function for people when they're looking at it in the real world.
Yeah. And that's so true.
Yeah.
And I think that you've really like figured out how to communicate that. Because I know I'll be like, what about this? And you're like, that's not going to work. And I'm like,
it's a really cool idea, but it's not going to work the way we want it to. No, there's lots of cool things we can do, but then you're like thinking about, oh, this looks great on my screen, but then what about when someone looks at it on their phone? Or what about when, someone's on like, an iPad, but they're in landscape mode instead of portrait mode.
And mobile is such a big deal.
Such a big deal.
And it's become even a bigger deal. I know anytime I'm on a website that doesn't really translate to mobile or like...
Yeah, you just get right out of there.
Right, like if it's like a shopping website. I was on what was I on? I can't remember. I was on some website like looking at shopping for something. I don't even know what it was. And the pictures wouldn't load.
Yeah.
And I'm like... it was American Eagle. American Eagle. Talk to Laura. It was American Eagle. I love American Eagle.
Yes.
And I'm like scrolling through it and like the pictures wouldn't load and they're like download the app and I'm like no,
I don't want to.
I don't want to download the app.
Definitely a lot of big retailers, are doing that where they're like, oh, our mobile experience is okay, but like if you get the app, it's really great in order to try to get downloads on their app. But it's you've got to make it work for mobile because
it's like
everybody's going to get your app.
Super high quality pictures that won't load.
Yes.
Yes. Like,
you're not buying anything if you can't see what it is. Not buying anything.
Or like you have a really hard time scrolling through the pictures on mobile. I was on something the other day and like I couldn't scroll through like the product items or the product pictures and I was like,
what?
Who built this?
Yeah. Come on.
We gotta fix it.
Because most people are looking at things from their phones. Most people are searching from their phones. It's just so much traffic comes from phones these days. And so you've got to be got to be prepared for it.
Right, because most people are on Facebook on their phones, and then
Absolutely.
they're clicking through the ads through their phones. Like, you should be able to scroll through your product shots.
You really should.
Because I'm not going to remember to go look.
Nope. If it doesn't happen right now, it's not
gonna
happening.
Then we're just out. So you also incorporate photography. So I want to talk about this a little bit, and you already kind of mentioned it, but you also incorporate photography into your packages. Why is photography important in a brand strategy?
I mean, I think everybody knows that everything's moving more and more visual these days. We're seeing so much more videos, so much more social media presence for brands, especially personal brands. And what I found is that standard portrait photography doesn't always translate well for brands and for websites. I've had clients that are like, okay, I just got photos done, and they send them to me, and it's like, okay, these photos are great, but none of them are what we need for like a banner photo or for like a big hero image on your homepage. And so I was just thinking, I love taking photos and I love photography and I do portrait photography, but sometimes what you need is someone who knows both the design world and what we're looking for that, and also photography and how to get the images that you need.
And it's usually, so Laura's done all my photography also because it's just easier, right?
Yes,
because
I already know you. I already know your brand.
Yeah, like we already put the brand together.
Yeah.
You know what needs to happen.
Yes.
You know what we need for the websites or the banners or whatever.
And it just makes it so much easier.
It does make it so much easier to have those. It does incorporate it into your brand strategy. And then you got a whole pile of images that are brand specific. Which is kind of about my next question. So what is important to consider when incorporating photography in your brand transactions or social media posts?
I think there's so many options for images. Okay, so what's important? Make sure that you can use the images. Don't just go to Google and grab whatever you can find.
Make sure they're open source, y'all.
Yeah. And then to also consider like who else is using them in your space. There's lots of imagery that I see on people's feeds, like social media. And I'm like, oh, I recognize that from so-and-so stock website, or I recognize that from a photographer who provides images. And so there's something nice about having your own images. No one else is going to have them, which is really cool. But if you can't afford to do that, then I think try to pick things that represent your brand, represent your colors. They're really careful. And make sure that you're allowed to use them in the way you're using them.
So it's so funny. I actually used an image from Unsplash, and I've literally seen it 10 other places.
Yes. Yeah.
I love Unsplash.
Like, I love Unsplash too.
Anytime I need an image for something, I'm on Unsplash.
You gotta scroll a long time because people will pick in the like first few scrolls. If you keep going,
it's such a good image. It's a bunch of people like fist bumping.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a really good picture.
It's a really good picture. Yeah.
And it fit it, it's
exactly what you needed.
Right?
Yeah.
It's collaboration. People fist bumping because something, right? It's a great picture, but I've seen it like 5 or 6 times. I even like sent somebody so I had made something in Canva.
Gotta love Canva.
I love Canva.
Love Canva.
I just figured out the other day how to actually line stuff up. And
I was so proud.
The things I know. Never thought I'd have to know that. But and I sent it to somebody like, oh, we use that image for such and such. And I was like,
yes.
Great, thanks.
And sometimes you just need an image that like, are you going to sit down and think like, okay, in my brand photo shoot, we need to get this image? Probably not.
No.
And sometimes you just need it. So stock photos are great. But it's also, you want to sometimes be using things most of the time, if you can, that are unique to you.
Yeah. And on brand.
Exactly.
But nobody needs to see another picture of me in the purple shirt. Just kidding. It's a good shirt, though.
It's a good shirt.
So what are some of the biggest mistakes you see in brand strategies?
I would definitely say when people work with someone who works in a different industry than them. So like branding for big corporations is very different than branding for small business. And so when I see people who do that is, I'm like, oh, please don't do that. Right. Yeah, please don't do that. And then the other thing I see is when people pick and they aren't picking based on the aesthetic of the designer. Designers, of course, can design a lot of different things, but like every other service provider, we have a place where we're comfortable and where we do our best work. And so if you're looking at someone's portfolio and it's not thrilling you, don't hire that person. Not because they're not great, but because it's clearly not an aesthetic match to what you need. So.
Right. I think, and I've learned from working with you, but just like working with a creative, like if they're not creating something, or if what they create doesn't resonate with you,
Mm-hmm.
they're probably not going to create something that resonates with you.
Yes.
Or your audience or whatever.
Yes.
There's too many people, like we can just talk about the doula industry. There's too many like pregnant bellies and trees. Like that's it.
So many. So many.
It's pregnant bellies and trees. Those are your options.
Pretty much, yeah. But that's what everybody wants. Like when clients come to me, that's what they're always looking for. And I'm like, okay, how do we take a spin on that and make it fresh? But yeah, if you take that brief to someone who only does like corporate logos or only, you're not going to get what you're looking for because that's not what they do. That's not where they specialize.
Yeah. Or somebody on Fiverr, you're just going to get what everybody else has.
Yes.
Because you're not paying.
I actually had a client who contacted me for a website and she was like, oh my gosh, I already have my brand, I'm ready. And then I sent her to do her like visual homework for her website. And she was like, oh my gosh, I just found my custom logo on like a free vector stock site. And she had just bought it from a place like that. And she was like, so it's not as custom as I thought. And so we ended up going back and doing a whole brand strategy with her from the start. And it was really fun. But she was devastated because she, you've got to know. So I think pick someone who you can see their work and know exactly what they're providing you. And also get a contract, know what you're getting, and protect yourself. Don't just grab any old person.
Yeah, I mean, you're creating intellectual property.
Yes, you are.
And I think people don't realize that.
They don't think about it that way.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
But it's important to realize that this is your story. Like this, this represents you and your business, and it is intellectual property.
Yes, it is. And I think it needs to be created thoughtfully and specifically for each client.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get that kind of work from Fiverr, and you might not get it from, your best friend's sister's cousin who does logos sometimes. So you want to pick carefully.
That's important.
Yeah, I think it is.
I think a lot of people, they just throw something up just to do it. And that's fine. But a lot of the time people will go back and, they're like, really, this is not telling the story. I get a lot of clients that, they're like, oh, I just got whatever, or I just, made it myself in Canva or whatever. And they're like, I'm ready to make it more specific, make it more intentional. And it's a really fun process to do that because it is different than just, I picked colors that I liked and then I picked an image that I liked and threw it up there. Yeah. It's a whole process.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Fun though. Fun process. But
I try to make it fun.
It's a process.
Yeah.
So I don't have this question, but something I want to talk to you about, because this is something we're going to be hopefully doing in this next year, is a rebrand. So what's important to know about a rebrand, and how does that work? It's really hard because when you have like a brand,
you already have a brand,
that you've already been using everywhere,
and you already have stock in that brand. You already have people know that, and so you want to like protect that and be cognizant of that, but at the same time pick and go a new direction. So it depends on what you had before. Like I said, if you've got, sort of like I just had my name in a regular font, then you can really start and do whatever you'd like. I think for, like for you, it's going to be more, what pieces do we want to keep and what pieces do we want to change? Because there's a lot of elements that can come with us, especially because you're not shifting into like a new industry or, you know what I mean? Like you're not this time, maybe next time, but there's elements that can come. And so it's a balancing act of what do we bring in that's new? And then what do we keep that will help connect the past to the present and future for clients when they come and see what you've built.
Oh, I really like that. That's really good to know. I have some clients that have bought businesses, and are doing like a literal just like 180 on the brand.
Yes.
And it's very interesting, to watch their process on, the thing they bought,
right?
Something they thought had value, right? But then they're just going to completely change it.
Yep, change it around.
Completely different. And that process is interesting.
Yeah.
Because I think a brand choice is always hard.
Yes.
It's always hard. And like sometimes they'll just be like, Jamie, what do you think? And I'll be looking at like what you had versus what you have. And it's just like, we need to...
You got to bridge it. Yeah.
Yeah. It does have to be cohesive.
Yeah.
And
there needs to be connection.
Now that you've explained that, that's pretty much what I said. But like, I just did that in my mind, you already have a client base, so we don't want to completely change everything on them.
Exactly. You don't want to shock them. You want to give them something that feels more cohesive as you're moving forward.
Or even a better fit.
Or even a better fit
than your previous brand.
Absolutely.
Name changes. That's got to be the hardest one, especially for an established business.
It can be. Yeah, it really can be. And especially when you start getting into like SEO and things like that and how all of that changes. But I think we're getting more used to things changing their names these days. And I just think like we're shifting into a place where people are more like, oh, okay, like we're just changing up and, things are changing a little bit. But it's still a difficult part. And I also think like picking a name sometimes can be super challenging if you are shifting from like you're doing from your name to a practice name. That is, how do you even start to begin?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we could just throw and associates on the end, but I don't want to do that. That's just
it doesn't
boring.
And it doesn't fit with the rest of the way that you've branded yourself as a person who steps outside of the box. Like that is the expected name change in the industry. So that will be what you will not be doing.
No. Box, no.
Yes.
We're going to jump over the box. And figure something else out.
Go somewhere else.
I don't know what, but we will get there.
It's going to be awesome.
So did I already ask you what are some of the biggest roadblocks when creating a brand strategy for a small business owner? I don't think I did. What are the biggest roadblocks?
The biggest roadblocks.
Especially small businesses. Or people who don't know they're creating businesses. We talk about the dual industry a lot. They don't know that they are creating businesses.
Yes. Yeah. I think that some of the roadblocks would be not understanding where we need to get feedback from. Like, okay, so I, created a thing and I'm going to put it on my Facebook. I'm just going to ask everybody what they think. And it's like, we are creating for a specific audience and for a specific client type. You're not creating for your grandmother and also your high school best friend. So, unless they're in your target market. And so I think that's something that is difficult for clients when they're getting started. And that educational process for me can sometimes be, I enjoy it, but it can sometimes be challenging to help them get out of that mindset of it. We're not just making something that you like and your friends are like, yay. We're making something strategic that points to your clients and gives them something to anchor onto. So that would be the biggest one that I see. I think the other thing sometimes is getting like personally attached, like, oh my gosh, pink's my favorite color, so we have to keep pink. It can be your favorite color, but it doesn't mean you have to keep it in your brand. And so some of that like separation. I also think that clients don't always, who are like getting started, they don't always know all of the breadth of things that they need to keep up on. Like I definitely have clients who are like at the end of a website process, like, whew, okay, so that's done. And I never have to come back to it. And it's like, your website should be a living thing that like comes with you and grows with you and changes with you. And so you can't just you can, but you shouldn't just leave it sitting there to do its own thing and wait for you. So I think that's something too that clients are not always expecting, is that your brand will continue to grow and change as you grow and change as a business owner.
Yeah, I feel like you and I are constantly doing website changes.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Because I'm just like, oh, and this and that, and add prices and take off prices, and because we're constantly changing what we offer to fit our clientele and to offer more and to take care of people and add more value. But then we have to turn around and make sure that everything that the website reflects that, and we have to figure out how to say it and the content and whatever. Which we were just talking about. Bullet points are my jam. Like, can we just put stuff in bullet points? So I'll just give Laura bullet points and I'm like, do what you want with them. Like, that's how I communicate best. Like, if you need bigger sentences, let me know.
And then we got to work on the bigger sentences. And then it's usually, I'm like, okay, we need something that ties this to this to this. And then you come back with this like, bam, killer sentence. I'm like, yes, see? It's not all about the bullet points.
It's not all about the bullet points.
The bullet points are helpful.
But it's part of my process.
Yes.
And I think that, website content I know is always an issue. It's like asking people to write stuff.
Yes, it's very
with
difficult.
Content or hire somebody.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm actually kind of at the point where I'm just like, I should probably hire somebody eventually to just like tweak the content. Just read our content. Let me know what you think. How does it work?
And copywriting is a whole skill set all on its own.
It's a whole deal.
Yeah. I mean, I like to help like clients judge their content a little bit, but like, if you can get a copywriter, it can be such a wonderful help to really, because they do a similar process, I think, to designers. They like learn about you, learn about your brand, learn about your voice, and then do the same kind of thing, just translating into words instead of translating into visuals.
Yeah, it's really important to not go copy somebody else's.
Oh my gosh, it's so important. Yes, right.
So
write your own stuff.
Yeah. You will get bills.
You will, for sure.
And yes, I know a good friend of mine. I think she runs her website through like weekly, like checker to make sure that nobody else is taking her content, and then she will send them an invoice.
I mean, people do it all the time. It's very shady, but people do it, and they'll do it.
It's
for
just lazy.
everything.
They don't
It's
understand
totally
too.
And they don't understand that, like, one of the most important things is being truly authentic. And when you take in someone else's creative property, it's not authentically reflecting you at all, especially in small service-based businesses where you are the person who's interfacing with your clients. Then it becomes even more important to tell the truth and be honest about who you are.
I love it. So before I ask my last question, what is the easiest way for people to find you?
The easiest way to find me would be at ratherpoetic.com. I also am at ratherpoetic on most things, although I mostly hang out on Instagram these days.
You do.
I do.
You do.
I do.
She's anti-Facebook right now. So what is the most important reason to have a solid visual brand strategy?
I think it's for communication and connection with clients and people who are looking on the internet for things. They're looking for something that makes them feel a certain way. Yeah, they might be looking for a certain service or a certain product, but they are also looking for a feeling and an experience. And when you curate a really careful brand strategy and visual strategy that communicates your message, you're going to connect every time with the people who are for you.
I love it, which is why we do audio and video.
Because some people, hey.
It's not my favorite thing to watch myself, but we do it
neither.
because...
But you do it, because that's what works for people. And when you meet people with what they're looking for, they're able to connect with you and then decide, like, yes, I want to hire this person, or I need to find someone else, or... I
can't tell you how many times I've listened to a podcast and then I have to go find pictures of those people, right? Because I have to match faces.
We're so visual.
I'm ridiculously visual. So I have to go I need to know what that person looks like. Because it helps me it helps me listen better.
Yeah. It creates another anchor in your mind besides just hearing their voice. You can hear them and you can know what they look like. It creates a more complete picture of who they are for you.
I love it.
Which makes it easier to listen to them.
Thank you for coming.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening or watching. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, or wherever you prefer to listen. If you learned something and found some useful information to apply to your business today, please consider giving us a thumbs up and a review. Until next week, be abundant.